Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 322, and we're going to talk about the NSA's secret sex chats. Yes, this is February 27th, 2025. But first, I just want to make a comment. There's that expression, two steps forward, one step back. And, just some of the things that Trump has been saying about Ukraine and Gaza. It's just so upsetting. Like, whatever happened to end the war in a day? Whatever happened to this war never would have happened if I was president. And now making a suggestion that American troops will serve as peacekeepers in Ukraine, or him posting that giant gold statue in the middle of Gaza, AI generated, of course. I mean, what is going on, really? And it's just things like that, which just kind of does not lend itself to being presidential representative of America. Dear God, it's just off-putting. And then, of course, yesterday I talked about how the new budget was passed, and it's likely that it will add $20 trillion to our debt. So there's like, on the one hand, it's like, yeah, cut the waste, and then we just add more to it. It's just insane. I don't know. It's hard to keep level-headed in the face of all of this. All right, so let's get to our main topic. This is from City Journal, an article by Christopher Rufo and Hannah Grossman. The title of the article is "The NSA's Secret Sex Chats. Intelligence Officials Maintained a Chat Room to Discuss poly, Polyamory, Transgender Surgeries, Internal Documents Reveal." That's the title. Okay. And polyamory means basically having multiple lovers. Okay. So polyamorous, right? Uh, anyway, I'm just going to read little bits of the article. And if you want to read it in its entirety, I just gave you the names: Christopher Rufo, Hannah Grossman, City Journal, NSA's secret sex chats. Okay, so the intelligence community is one of the most powerful parts of the American national security apparatus. In theory, it works tirelessly to keep the nation safe. But according to internal documents that we obtained, some intelligence agency employees have another on-the-job priority: sex chats. We have cultivated sources within the NSA, National Security Agency, one current employee and one former employee who have provided chat logs from the NSA's Interlink messaging program. Uh, these logs, dating back 2 years, are lurid, featuring wide-ranging discussions of sex, kink, polyamory, and castration, right? So it's not that kind of sex chat, right? So these revelations come at a moment of heightened security for the intelligence community. President Donald Trump, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard have each made the case that the intelligence agencies have gone woke, prioritizing left-wing activism over national security. These chat logs confirm their suspicions and raise fundamental questions about competence and professionalism. According to our sources, the sex chats were legitimized as part of the NSA's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Activists within the agency used LGBTQ plus employee resource groups to turn their kinks and pathologies into official work duties. According to the current NSA employee, these groups spend all day recruiting activists and holding meetings with titles such as privilege, ally awareness, pride, and transgender community inclusion. And they did so with the full support of the NSA leadership, which declared that DEI was not only mission critical, but mission imperative. Huh. The NSA sources also raised the question of some staffers' mental fitness for the job. In one chat, an NSA employee insists on using "it" pronouns in lieu of the human he or she pronoun. And that's pretty much all I'm going to read. Behold what we are paying for with our tax dollars. Clearly, money well spent. Right. And so, uh, in another article, I deleted it once I found the this article, but it made mention that it's likely that other intelligence, other bureaucracies are engaging in similar behavior. I saw somewhere else uh, that the CIA and FBI were also involved in this, I didn't see it mentioned in this particular article. I think NSA is being highlighted primarily because Tulsi Gabbard already fired over 100 of these people who are in that chat room, and basically, yeah, revoked their security clearance, right? Because clearly this has nothing to do with national security, right? This is just their own personal whatevers. And if I understand the whole process correctly, the government was also covering the cost of the transition, which means if they've already kind of transitioned, they still need to take a lot of those pills, which now they have to pay out of pocket because they don't have, health insurance or the government picking up the tab any longer. So that will be interesting, right? Uh, so the Babylon Bee, never missing a beat, ran a parody title, and it was called NSA Agents Horrified People Spying on Their Personal Conversations. And of course, the joke is, of course, that the NSA spies on all of us through all of our phones, all our devices. Cameras are always on, the microphone is always on, always listening. Okay. And so it's just it's funny because the NSA that spies on everybody is, you know, surprised that people found out what they were actually doing. Now, this reminds me of the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. You may not remember this, but in 2008, Bernie Madoff was able to, uh, I guess, run a Ponzi scheme and ultimately get away with $65 billion, which of course was a lot more than today's 65 billions. Today's 65 billion is just the budget of, USAID. That's not much. So, but at the time, 65 billion, that was like a massive amount of money. And I think it got a lot of headline news because Hollywood actors were among the people who got scammed out of some money, right? So he was arrested in 2008. Bernie Madoff was arrested in 2008 for running the Ponzi scheme. And if you don't know what Ponzi scheme is, it's named after the dude Ponzi who did it for the first time. And very simply, you get more customers and you pay the new customers are paid or older customers are paid by the money that you receive from new customers. So it's like this pyramid scheme where you need to have more new customers to continue to give money to the older customers who are either cashing out or who want a partial redemption. And so it's a kind of very tricky thing where you got to maintain this balance and you have to constantly have this increasing number of new clients. And so that's where you see when you run out of new clients, then the Ponzi scheme falls apart. And so he did this and amassed $65 billion. Well, 2 years later, an investigation after the fallout, and I guess after he was sentenced to jail, people started asking, well, how did he get away with it? And it turns out the SEC basically came out with a report around April of 2010, 2 years later. And what came out was that, and this I got this from ABC News, GMA, that would be Good Morning America, on April 22nd, 2010. And the title is SEC and Bernie Madoff. So SEC stands for the Security Exchange Commission. And so the title is saying SEC and Bernie Madoff. And basically it says SEC porn problem. Yes, the porn problem. Officials surfing sites during financial crisis report finds. Some top SEC officials spend their working hours surfing the web for porn. The investigation, which was conducted by the SEC's internal watchdog at the request of Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican from Iowa, found 31 serious offenders during the past 2.5 years. That's less than 1% of the agency's 3,500 employees, but 17 of the alleged offenders were senior SEC officials whose salaries ranged from $100,000 to $222,000 per year. So being paid to surf porn, that's something, right? I read on. Some of the big offenders are still on the job, according to the sources. And another SEC accountant attempted to access porn sites 16,000 times in a single month. Wow, wow, you got to be doing that constantly all day, every day, 16,000 times? Wow. I read on. SEC punishes porn surfing employees. Some top SEC officials spend their working hours surfing the web for porn. Oh, this is another article. Oh, my bullets were out of alignment. But yeah, this is another article. It says it's SEC punishes porn surfing employees. Some top SEC officials spend their working hours surfing the web for porn. ABC News, same date. Okay, so not Good Morning America. And I think uh, in that particular piece, that's where you see that some people were punished. Some people are just simply being disciplined. They should all be fired, the way Tulsi Gabbard fired the people that were in the chat room who worked for the NSA. So that's basically the story, right? So the NSA agents thought that perhaps that Biden was going to win again, and because he was going to win again, everything that they were doing will remain secret. Plus, they have the sort of power granted to them by their superiors, and also, the power of the trend as well. So, being trans is in. Okay. So the real question is, who watches the watchers? And of course, the answer is no one. No one's watching the NSA. No one is watching the SEC. And so what you need is are whistleblowers, people who work for the SEC or the NSA, who see what's going on, are disgusted by it, and then reports what they see. Right? That's kind of what you need. So in answer to the question, who watches the watchers? Well, no one at the moment. So why do we have them? Just so you know, the SEC and Bernie Madoff situation. I remember hearing, following the news story a little bit and having a ball with it at school when I talked about it. But um, the solution for the SEC porn problem was to establish and create a new bureaucracy that watches over the SEC. Huh, interesting, right? So basically, SEC is supposed to watch the stock markets, right? The Security Exchange Commission. And so now you need another bureaucracy to watch the SEC. And when things start falling apart again, then you need another bureaucracy to watch the bureaucracy that's watching the SEC, and so on and so forth. And that basically is government. That's why Doge can find waste everywhere. So the real question is, why do we have these agencies, NSA, SEC? Why do we have these agencies if they don't work? All they do is provide a false sense of security, a false sense of protection which of course creates even a bigger problem, right? And so everyone says, well, this can't be a fraud. We have the SEC, and the SEC is here looking for frauds and protecting us from frauds. So therefore, this Bernie Madoff guy, he's not engaging in fraud, right? And so more people put more money into a Ponzi scheme, which makes the pain when everything falls apart even greater, right? The pain becomes way too much. Now, we don't need the SEC, as a matter of fact. We didn't have the SEC for a very long time. I think it was after the Great Depression that they think they started the SEC. Let me check to make sure. Yeah, I was right. It started in 1934 as a result of the big stock market crash, right? So you got to blame someone. Wow, it's because we need people to watch the stock market, right? We're not going to explain booms and busts, right? We're just going to blame it on the stock market itself, right? Those greedy people who are trading on the stock market, right? And so the SEC is created, and of course, they don't really do much of anything. And so one of the big things that people are concerned about on the stock market is insider trading. Well, it shouldn't, should it be allowed? Should it not be allowed? Well, it happens anyway. It's like drug trafficking. You can't stop it. No matter how much you spend on the drug war, you can't stop it, right? Because people still want it, right? It still will be done. So why bother trying to impede it? Why bother trying to get in its way? Because if you do, then you create an even bigger problem. Now, when it comes to the SEC and insider trading, I forget who it was, but someone explained that you don't have to criminalize it, right? After all, Congress, who wrote the law, to criminalize insider trading, well, they do it all of the time, right? They exempt themselves. And so, because they are exempt from insider trading prohibition, right, which means they can do it, then, they do it a lot. This is how you have a lot of people in Congress be extremely wealthy, although their annual salary is not that much. Okay. So what if we didn't have an SEC? Well, then what happens is that news travels faster, right? People figure out that there was a big change, that a company got a contract, that a country is a company is about to go broke. That information travels faster, which reduces the volatility, which reduces how much a stock will go down or how much a stock will go up, right? And so this is the thing that information will travel faster, and so the losses or the gains will not nearly be as much as it was before. Okay, so you don't need a SEC, right? Just by people who are vigilant with the market, they'll see the signs, they'll see the trade, the impending dangers, and so they will be able to telegraph that insider information faster, which then reduces the gains or the losses. And if you ever, every once in a while, I'll listen to a technical trader and I don't know what they're talking about, but they see patterns where a lot of other people do not. And so a lot of people will do that. They will teach other people how to do that. And so that becomes the protection within the market, right? They can spot irregularities, they can spot patterns of behavior which are indicative of insider trading. And so the problem is solved because more people will say, oh, see, something is going on here. They share that information very quickly. And so it levels it out a little bit better. How about the NSA? Well, they're not keeping us safe, right? Clearly, they're not because they're not even working on those projects. I mean, to have over 100+ employees, what were they doing? What were they supposed to be doing? When they're not talking about sex change operations, right? So that's a very interesting thing. So clearly, these 100+ people are not keeping us safe. But then the argument can be made about the whole entire NSA. Why have them if all they're doing is spying on us? right? So they're listening to our conversations, they're listening to our podcasts, not the phone calls or emails of our terrorist enemies, right? So-called. And because they are government bureaucracies and the chance of losing your job is kind of slim, well, there's no incentive for hard work. There's no incentive to work hard because no one's watching you. You still get paid, and hardly anything ever happens in the stock market, right? So we don't have to do anything. I'm bored, so I think I'll surf porn all day, right? So there's a lack of transparency, lack of accountability, which allows something to grow out of hand as it has with the NSA and that chat room used for DEI purposes. It's this. It's hard to imagine that this kind of phenomena is not happening all over government, right? That it's only these two bureaucracies that are problematic, right? SEC and NSA, but all the other ones are perfectly fine. They're perfectly functioning, right? No corruption, no uh, misuse of government resources, like using a secret intelligence chat to just simply talk about things that they want to talk about. It's just, you know, they're abusing all of their power and privilege that was given to them by virtue of working for the government, right? So it's not surprising to, or it's not hard to imagine that lots of other bureaucracies are simply doing the same thing. So it's freedom for the win again, right? If a problem arises, then lots of people are working without talking to each other, working on a solution. If it's even a problem at all, right? Is it even a problem? Did we actually need the SEC? You know, especially when you imagine that the Great Depression, the stock market crash, was the result of easy money policy, right? And so you stop the flow of money, and the stock market won't have those sharp rises any longer. So it's freedom. Why do we need a president who makes decisions for all of us? Like, we're going to go in Gaza now, we're going to go in Ukraine now, or even to have a leader who, because he's making a deal, will say these ridiculous, outlandish things just to get people to the table, just to make a deal, right? I mean, if we weren't so invested with the president, then we wouldn't care what the president is doing. We would just simply get busy trying to resolve and solve the problems that we as individuals have, right? And so the conclusion, once again, is we need to have more freedom, not less, not live under the impression that bureaucracies are going to protect us, but rather use our freedom to protect ourselves. That's it for this episode. I'll talk to you guys next time.